God rewrote my story and gave it a divine plot twist. My parents homeschooled us for religious reasons. They were pretty strict. We were not allowed to listen to secular music, only Christian, educational. The same with the television. The television was Christian and educational only. My early understanding of faith was very legalistic. I didn't think of sin as something that separated you from God. I thought it as a line item to be punished for each sin.
So I met Eric when he was a freshman in high school, and I was a new youth pastor at the church. And not only was I his youth pastor and he was in the youth band, he was also in my small group along with a bunch of his friends. And so we had a great time in small group. Eric was incredibly full of energy, but not always energy directed towards spiritual things. We'd talk about God for about 3 minutes, and then we'd run around like banshees, or they would run around like banshees for the next 25, 30 minutes. We'd eat food, drink a lot of Mountain Dew, and talk about God.
I was a little bit of a troublemaker in youth group. I had a lot of fun on the road trips especially. I remember poking fun at some of the girls on the 24-hour drives, 18-hour drives, and playing my music as loud as I could, and just general teenage annoyingness.
My brother Eric, in junior high and high school, bit of a wild man. I think every generation of youth kids has one or many. We had 3 in ours. Eric, his best friend Justin, and Austin. Eric wanted to get out of the house as soon as he could, so he moved to an apartment in Massillon. And at that point, it wasn't alarming. He just was gone. It just was normal for me, and he's just gone.
I turned 19. I moved down to Florida to go into business with my brother. We were running cellular kiosks at the time, and that went well for a while. And then the franchise started to change a little bit. We ended up losing our store. I got married to a woman I met at the time. She was very academia oriented. She graduated with her bachelor's pretty early in the relationship, went on to start working on her PhD in molecular biology. That kind of made space between us in the relationship. She was working at the laboratory a lot, and then when she'd come home, she would be in the office typing away. So that kind of rubbed off on me. Besides that, I was, I guess, a little lazy with my faith. Between those two things, after a few years, I was no longer a Christian. We moved to Nashville in 2017. The relationship was pretty rocky at that point. So we had a little bit less of a relationship. In 2019, she let me know that she wanted a divorce. Even though it wasn't really the healthiest relationship, I was attached and I took it really hard. And I started drinking away the pain. Shortly after the divorce, I started making new friends. I started hanging around a brewery that was within walking distance of my apartment at the time. I made friends with the 2 owners and the head bartender, and they really helped me through some really hard times. The unfortunate part was everything we did involved alcohol. Honky-tonks, clubs, bars of Broadway, downtown Nashville. While I was there, I met my wife, and she had a very similar background to me. She's from the Midwest, small town, middle America kind of thing. We were both agnostic. When I met Kara, it was easy. It was bread and butter. She was just the kind of person that I wanted to be with all the time. The one thing we were missing was our faith. Then we had Ruby. She was a couple years old when we decided to move to Ohio. We did that mainly for her benefit. Nashville has some dangerous aspects to it, and we just wanted a little bit more of a simple life for her to grow up in.
I've never written off any family that doesn't live around here because all my family is now all over the country and all over the world, actually. But it was just like I had gotten used to being the only one here. So I was just confused. I was excited, but I wasn't like, oh great, he's back. It's like, well, it was 20 years ago. Like, things will be different, and that's okay. I'm a CCW instructor. I worked for a security firm for a while, And that was kind of our common ground. We both are protectors, at least think we are. And so we'd go over and shoot and drill and spend time together, just do outdoor boy stuff like when we were 12 and 14 years old again.
The crisis that pointed me back to faith was, well, it started in July of last year. I went on a family vacation with my siblings, their spouses, their kids, my parents. I decided to experience a little bit of Old Smoky Mountain moonshine. I was always a beer guy, so pretty quickly lost control of that, blacked out. I missed the family outing the next day and embarrassed myself. Didn't know about it until I was told about it the next day. Then 23rd of August of last year, I decided to go ahead and get a 4-pack of some high-content IPAs. I had pizza in the oven I meant to eat, but after a few of those, my stomach was full and I just wanted beer. So I think after just like one more beer, I was blacked out completely.
So August the 23rd, the phone rang and it was Kara. So I answered and she was pretty upset. There's a 4-wheeler on the farm. He likes to go fast. And my first thought was he's dead. Like he hit something or rolled into the pond or maybe got hit on the road. And so I immediately just freaking out myself. And she said, Eric is very just out of his mind. I have no idea what's going on. Can you please come over and help? I got about a mile away from the farm. Kara was calling back. And this time she was inconsolable, like beside herself. And she said, help, he's yelling, I don't know what he's talking about, and he slapped me. There's Hollywood violence and there's real violence. And like, if you've ever heard real violence, like sounds more like thuds and slapping sounds. It's not Hollywood at all. So I heard that. Training that I'd been going through for security and CCW is like kicking in, like my monkey brain is starting to revert. Guns, he has guns in the house. I know he has guns in the house. What am I gonna do? Everything I've learned is de-escalate, not exacerbate. And yet I'm about to insert myself into a situation. And that's the worst thing I can do, and I know that. So I sat at the bottom of their driveway, and I called my friend and our local police chief, Eric McFerrin, and I told him what was going on. What would you do if you're me? And he said, you cannot go in there. It will get ugly. You will end up in jail. He'll end up in jail. There's good guys and bad guys. There's aggressors and being defensive, and that's it. Where it gets weird is when it's your brother, and you think, if I go in there and he's got a gun, called the sheriff. They were on their way, but they're 27 minutes out. So I called Kara and I said, do whatever you have to do. Get Ruby and start running down the driveway. And I'll pick you guys up and we'll just leave. And if he tears the house up, it's just a house. I did see a flashlight just kind of bouncing down the driveway, and I thought, oh good, she got out. She got in the car without Ruby. She said he took Ruby and I don't know where they went. And I said, well, I'm just one person. I can't save everybody. I have no backup. It's just me. So we're just gonna sit here. And I told her what I did. I said, I called the sheriff, they're on their way, which sent her into just absolute hysterical fit. She's like, I'm a horrible person. He's gonna divorce me. I said, well, that's the least of your worries right now. We need to get Ruby safe, we need to get you safe, and we need to get him help. And that's end of story. Like, nothing else matters at this point to me, or honestly, even to him. Once the deputies went up and started talking to him, they called me and said, hey, can you come up here, leave mom down there, and can you come get the child? Because we don't want her to see what's about to happen. I went up and grabbed Ruby. As I'm carrying her across the gravel driveway, they're putting Eric in cuffs against the front bumper of one of the cruisers. So I sat with Ruby in the yard. We watched funny cat videos on my phone, did whatever I could to distract her, and They arrested him, took him away.
I woke up the next day in jail, and I had no idea why I was there. And it took until about 11 o'clock for me to get the jailers to tell me why I was there. And they told me I was there for domestic violence, and that I was not able to talk to my wife. Drinking after a blacking out experience is like feeding a dog that bit you. Drinking after going to jail is like making your wife and daughter feed that same dog. I learned a lot of things from just even the first night in jail. One of the first things I learned, or realized, was that none of the people around me had a support system. There was no one willing to help. I wanted to be that person, but it was pretty obvious that I needed to help myself before I could help anyone else. The other thing I learned is I needed to stop drinking.
Kara called and said, could you take Eric's glasses to the jail? He can't see anything, and the jail staff can't even really reason with him because it sounds like he's still drunk. So brought them into the Wayne County Sheriff and had a little conversation with one of the jail staff there. And he said, your brother still has no idea where he's at. This is about 9 or 10 in the morning. We've explained to him about 6 times, and he's still not quite getting it. So we'll let him sleep a little more, get a little food in him, and then we'll explain. That jail staff kind of explained how this process works of healing, because they see it every day. Literally every weekend, they see 6 to 12 arrests just like this. And he said, it's not the end of the world. It's his first offense. Wayne County is really hard on second offenders. Like, he won't be getting out of here. First time, they'll be easy on him. And his attitude when you pick him up will determine the course of the next year. I had high hopes. I'm like, well, when can I get him? And it's Sunday, so I can't get him out. He can't see the judge. So I ended up picking him up. He kind of wandered around when he got out. Ended up in the south side of Worcester. Went to pick him up, which is a super weird and horrible feeling. Exactly what the jail staff told me is a worst case scenario is what happened. He wasn't angry. He was just not as remorseful as what I had hoped. When I called my dad, he had got up super early and drove to be here when Eric was released. We were going to just stay at my house and kind of get things figured out until we knew what we were allowed to do, what he was allowed to do, and I was prepared to just like let him live in our house until we got him in front of a judge and figured out the no contact order. And the first couple hours were rough. Physically, he was sick. Like, was very hungover, very dehydrated. I wouldn't say irrational, but definitely wasn't ready to listen to what we had to say, which was feeding into my fear. This is just going to happen again, and if this is my life now, I don't want any part of it. So my first call was to Mark. Mark was out of state, so my second call was to Jason Boyer, so he could just mediate, counsel, just kind of help us work through this together. I don't remember exactly what was said other than a lot of brutal honesty. My dad telling us some stories about his own struggles that none of us knew, and honestly, after hearing them, I hope I never have to hear that again. The moment I think I saw the change is when I said, I can't let my girls be around you. And I think that changed something in his brain, and he said, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. And I said, well, don't just say that to concede. Say that because you mean it. And he said, Alcohol Anonymous, church, counseling, medical intervention if needed, whatever it takes, I'm doing it.
The following Wednesday, my dad took me to AA where they were talking about prayer and how to talk to God. That's where I learned that blacking out is like a pretty big first warning sign. That's where you need to switch right there. My dad took me to church the following Sunday. Pastor Mike was speaking. He was talking about walking with the lion. At one point during the sermon, he even said something specifically to me. And I took the sermon to heart. On the way home, my dad was driving. I started praying, and I felt a weight lift off of me. That's when I knew this was all very real. I mean, there was no doubting that the weight was gone. It wasn't just an emotional weight, it was a physical weight. It just felt physically and mentally and emotionally like something was actually happening. Not just an idea, or not just an emotion. That was the moment where I knew this was real and it had to be the path that I had to be on. A few months later, I called Pastor Mike. I was kind of on a mission of calling people and telling them how God had moved through them to get me back to where I needed to be. And Mike told me a story about someone else from when he was the head pastor at Living Water who had heard something during a sermon that he did not say. And he said, "Eric, I didn't say those things that you heard." So I went home and I got on lwchurch.com and I went to the archives and I went to that day, and he indeed did not say the things that I heard him say. I mean, that means God was talking to me.
So I knew Eric had gotten himself into some trouble, and that out of that he came to this place where he's like, I need something different. I knew he had come to Living Water. I wasn't there that Sunday, and I had heard that it impacted him deeply, and that he had made a decision. He said a prayer of surrender and made a decision, like, my life's got to be different. I've got to follow after God. And the moment I heard that, I'm like, I want to be a part of his life again. It's like this idea that small group started 25 years ago with discipling and with sharing with somebody. And now 25 years later, I get to continue that journey. And so Eric and I meet every week together. We talk scripture, we talk life, we pray together. And we're both learning what it means to fully follow after God.
There was a lot of things that he would do or say when he was drunk that just kind of bugged me, and I would just like, whatever, it's just his personality. But I realized it wasn't even him talking, it was the alcohol. And all those things went away, all of them. So I was like, man, I kind of like being around my brother a lot more than I used to. This is really the brother I remember.
Since that very first prayer, drinking has not been a thing. I have no interest in it. The Holy Spirit took that out of me.
He started coming to church and sitting in the front row. I'm like, dude, you don't have to do that. Like, God exists everywhere, and this is his house, but you don't have to be in the front. You can be anywhere in the sanctuary, but he's in the front row, and he's coming alone. And I'm like, that alone is tough, especially when a lot of years have passed, and this church is just different than it was then. And next thing I know, Ruby's here.
My walk with God has become really comforting and I think beautiful. Kara started to notice some changes in me. I'm not sure exactly what, other than I'm not drinking at all anymore, but that seems to have inspired her. After I told her about that first prayer and she started seeing the changes in me, we started praying together, and she started seeing some really positive effects in her life and her outlook on life. Just like a few weeks after that, she was like, let's do this.
Jail doesn't do it. And he could tell you that because he was in jail with people who spent a lot of time in jail. So jail's not going to do it. Classes don't do it. You have to be present. You have to give yourself. And he did. And he said, this is who I am now. And this old thing, it's gone. I would attribute his transformation 100% to God. It can't be anything else.
I sense a calling to bring others to Christ. Be some kind of a faith leader. I don't know what that means. I'll have to wait to see what God's plan is.
It's a privilege and it's a joy to spend time with Eric on his journey. And I really do believe that God has called him to something really significant. And I know that's happening now and will continue to emerge. And so I'm just really excited for what God has in store for Eric's life.
It's so obvious that God moves, and he's still moving today. The difference between the Eric from 6 months ago and the Eric now is self is gone. I want to live for God, and I want to help others, and that's all I want.